Gisele Bündchen, the supermodel who amazed the world, was far from perfect. Behind the pretty photos and fashion shows, she struggled with deep anxiety, tough breakups, strong rivalries, and the nonstop stress of being one of the best paid models. So, how did a girl from Brazil manage to outshine everyone? Come with us as we reveal the truth behind her big rise. Behind the spotlight, Gisele's battle with panic and healing. At the height of her fame, when the world saw her as the definition of beauty and confidence, Gisele Bündchen was quietly fighting one of the darkest battles of her life. To millions, she was untouchable, a supermodel adored on runways, magazine covers, and global campaigns. But behind the cameras, her days were filled with panic, fear, and moments of despair so deep that she once thought about ending it all. The same woman who appeared flawless in public was struggling to breathe when no one was watching. The pressure of being in the modeling industry is often invisible. For Gisele, the expectations were relentless. She was expected to always look perfect, always perform flawlessly, and never show weakness. With each success came even greater demands. The spotlight was bright, but it also burned. Slowly, the weight of this perfection began to crush her. Panic attacks started to creep into her life, growing stronger each time, until they became unbearable. These were not just moments of nervousness. They were episodes that left her gasping for air, her heart racing, and her mind spinning out of control. She once described it as feeling trapped in a tunnel of fear, unable to escape, with no light ahead. At times, the attacks became so overwhelming that she believed she could not go on any longer. The thought of ending her life seemed like the only way to stop the endless cycle of fear. What makes her story so powerful is the way she chose to fight back. Instead of surrendering, Gisele began to search for a path that would bring her peace. Doctors offered prescription medication, but she turned it down, afraid of depending on pills for her survival. She wanted something deeper, something that healed not just the symptoms, but the root of her suffering. Her answer came through a series of changes that transformed both her body and her mind. She embraced yoga, not just as a form of exercise, but as a way to reconnect with herself. Through slow movements and breathing, she found a space where her body calmed and her mind softened. Meditation became another lifeline, helping her quiet the storms of fear that once controlled her days. By sitting still, focusing on her breath, and learning to let thoughts pass without judgment, she discovered a strength she never knew she had. Alongside these practices, Gisele made powerful lifestyle changes. She paid attention to what she ate, how she slept, and the way she lived each day. She traded late nights and unhealthy habits for routines that nourished her body and gave her energy instead of draining it. These shifts may have seemed small, but together they became the foundation of her healing. Her journey is not just about personal survival. It also shines a light on the hidden struggles behind the glamorous world of modeling. Despite the perfect life most people imagined for her, Gisele's journey has been marked by scandals and controversies. But how did they affect her career? Gisele's untold storms. For all her success, Gisele Bündchen has not lived a life free of drama. Fame often magnifies every mistake, and for someone as closely watched as her, small slip-ups easily turned into headlines. Alongside her accomplishments came moments of controversy, criticism, and even danger, reminding the world that beneath the glittering image of a supermodel was a woman living a very real and very human life. One of the most frightening incidents happened in 2019 while she was in New York with her children. What should have been an ordinary day turned into a moment of panic when they were involved in a car accident. Thankfully, the crash resulted in only minor injuries, but the thought of what could have happened left many shaken. For Gisele, who has always spoken of her love and devotion to her children, the accident was a chilling reminder of how fragile life can be. It became a headline story not because of the damage done, but because of the fear it stirred in the hearts of her fans and loved ones who imagined the worst. Not long after, she found herself in the spotlight for a very different reason, one that brought heavy criticism. She was photographed driving without a seatbelt, and more troublingly, her child was in the car at the time. The images quickly spread across tabloids and online outlets, sparking outrage. As a mother who was constantly praised for her protective nature, the sight of her breaking a basic safety rule shocked many. The criticism was swift, with people questioning how someone so careful about health and wellness could overlook something as simple and important as buckling up. It was a moment that showed how quickly the public could turn when they felt a star was setting a poor example. Her early career also brought its set of controversies, especially around her struggles with English. When she first began receiving attention in the United States, Gisele avoided interviews, often saying she did not speak English. While this was true at the time, the choice fueled frustration in the press. Reporters accused her of dodging questions, and some felt she was unwilling to connect with the public outside of glossy photographs. This created a backlash that followed her until she grew more fluent and confident in the language. Ironically, what began as a simple communication barrier became a controversy, highlighting how even vulnerability could be twisted into criticism under the spotlight. Business ventures also brought challenges. Her Ipanema sandals brand was wildly successful, particularly in Brazil, but it was not without trouble. The company faced a lawsuit connected to environmental claims about its products. Critics questioned whether the sandals truly matched the sustainability promises that had been marketed. Although the brand defended its practices, the dispute cast a shadow on Gisele's carefully built image as someone deeply committed to nature and environmental causes. For a woman who prided herself on authenticity, it was an uncomfortable controversy that reminded her how business decisions could affect her reputation. Perhaps the most personal controversy came from her relationship with Tom Brady and the complicated dynamic with his ex, Bridget Moynihan. When Bridget revealed she was pregnant with Tom's child, the situation immediately attracted media attention. As Gisele became part of the picture, she made a comment that she felt like the baby was 100% hers. Though she meant it as a reflection of her love and dedication to the child, many people saw it as insensitive to Bridget, who was carrying and raising her son. The remark sparked widespread criticism, painting Gisele as someone who overstepped boundaries in a delicate family matter. It was a painful moment where her words, likely spoken from a place of affection, were instead seen as controversial and dismissive. What connects all these incidents is not just the controversies themselves, but the way they revealed Gisele's humanity. She was admired for her beauty, discipline, and career achievements. But these stories reminded the world that she could make mistakes like anyone else. Now let's take a look at what Gisele's romantic life is like. Gisele's search for true love. Before the world came to know Gisele Bündchen as the wife of Tom Brady, her love life was already a topic that fascinated fans and tabloids alike. One of the most talked about chapters of her past was her relationship with Hollywood superstar Leonardo DiCaprio. From 2000 to 2005, the two were considered one of the most glamorous couples in the world. Every outing, every red carpet appearance, and even the smallest of their private moments became a public spectacle. They were followed constantly by paparazzi, their pictures filling magazines and fueling endless gossip. To outsiders, it looked like a dream romance, a supermodel and a movie star living a fairy tale life. But behind the glossy photographs and the public fascination, things were far more complicated. While they appeared like the perfect couple, Gisele was quietly struggling inside. The pressure of constant attention was exhausting. Every move she made with Leonardo became front-page news, and the scrutiny never seemed to stop. At a time when she was already dealing with the stress of building a career at the top of the fashion world, the added weight of tabloid obsession made her personal life feel suffocating. More importantly, Gisele later revealed that she was deeply unhappy during that period. She was battling anxiety and emotional turmoil, even as she posed for cameras with a bright smile. The image of perfection the world saw was very different from what she was experiencing privately. The constant noise around her relationship, the flashing lights, and the endless rumors added to her inner struggles. Though she cared for Leonardo and their bond was real, the relationship could not survive the storm of pressure and her growing need for peace. In 2005, after 5 years together, they ended things, marking the close of a chapter that had defined much of her early 20s. Beyond her time with Leonardo, Gisele's name was occasionally linked to other rumored relationships. As one of the most famous women in the world, any friendship or public appearance with a man often sparked speculation. Yet none of these connections carried the same weight or public obsession as her years with Leonardo. The truth was that Gisele was searching for stability, something more grounding than the whirlwind of Hollywood glamour. Her love life before Tom Brady was filled with lessons. The turbulence of her high-profile romance taught her the cost of being part of a perfect couple in the public eye. Despite all the heartbreaks, Gisele managed to find love again. But the question remains, can it withstand the pressures of fame? Marriage to Tom Brady, fairy tale and fractures. When Gisele Bündchen married Tom Brady in 2009, the world seemed to witness the creation of a golden couple. He was the NFL's most celebrated quarterback, a man whose career was lined with trophies and victories. And she was the most famous supermodel of her generation, admired for her beauty, discipline, and influence. Together, they looked untouchable. Their wedding, intimate yet elegant, marked the beginning of what many believed was a modern-day fairy tale. They were the picture of glamour and success, balancing sports and fashion in a way that captivated the public's imagination. But behind the flawless photographs, life was far more layered. One of Gisele's first challenges as Tom's wife was adjusting to her role as a stepmother. Tom already had a son, John, with actress Bridget Moynihan. While Gisele was deeply committed to creating a loving environment for the boy, the situation was sensitive. Bridget's pregnancy had come at a complicated time, just as Gisele and Tom had begun their relationship. The blended family dynamic brought tension, both private and public. For Gisele, who cherished family values, it was a test of patience and compassion. She poured her heart into being present for John. But the circumstances often drew unwanted scrutiny and sometimes criticism from those who questioned her role. As years passed, the couple faced new challenges, many of them linked to Tom's NFL career. Football was not just his passion, but his identity, and the demands of the sport often pulled him away from home. The world got a glimpse of the cracks in their perfect image after one Super Bowl loss. In a rare public outburst, Gisele was caught venting her frustration, blaming Tom's teammates for the defeat. The moment went viral, turning her into a headline for all the wrong reasons. What had been a private expression of loyalty and anger was interpreted as arrogance, painting her as overly protective and outspoken. It was one of the first times the public began to see the strain that fame and constant pressure were placing on their marriage. Still, they remained a symbol of strength and unity, raising their children together while balancing their demanding careers. For Gisele, motherhood became a central focus, and she began to wish for a slower, more grounded life.
Children are my biggest gifts, and and I'm so focused on them and being the best mom that I can be, and I think both of us are really focused on how we can be the best parents.
Tom, however, was far from ready to step away from football. His refusal to retire became one of the deepest sources of conflict between them. Gisele had hoped for more family time, believing that after decades of relentless dedication to the sport, Tom would finally prioritize home life. Instead, each season he returned to the field, pushing back the possibility of a quieter life together. The growing divide between their dreams eventually became impossible to ignore. In 2022, after months of speculation, Gisele and Tom announced their divorce. The news shocked fans who had long admired them as an unshakable duo. To outsiders, they had embodied perfection. Yet even the golden couple could not escape the challenges of differing priorities, career demands, and the relentless pressure of public life. The story did not end there. After the divorce, Gisele became the subject of tabloid frenzy once more, this time linked to her jiu-jitsu trainer, Joaquim Valente. The closeness they shared, captured in photographs and stories, fueled endless rumors of a new romance. While nothing was ever confirmed in a definitive way, the speculation added more drama to an already emotional chapter. What was Gisele's life truly like after the divorce? Did things get better, or did new challenges emerge? Keep watching to find out more. Feuds and rivalries in the fashion world. As Gisele Bündchen rose to the top of the modeling world, her journey was not free of conflict. Success in fashion often brings attention, admiration, and envy all at once. For Gisele, the sudden dominance she gained in the late 1990s and early 2000s stirred waves of tension within the industry. She was the new face who seemed unstoppable, signing major contracts and walking for the biggest designers. While the public adored her, whispers behind the scenes suggested not everyone was pleased with how quickly she had taken the spotlight. Among the earliest stories of rivalry was her reported clash with Naomi Campbell. Naomi was already established as one of the most powerful supermodels in the world when Gisele stepped onto the scene. According to fashion insiders, Naomi allegedly dismissed Gisele's rise, claiming she was being given more hype than she deserved. The fashion media amplified these remarks, painting a picture of a feud between the seasoned star and the new queen. But time softened the edges of that rivalry. Eventually, both women appeared together publicly, showing that whatever tension once existed had been resolved. Their reconciliation reminded the world that competition in modeling can sometimes mask genuine respect. Giselle's look also sparked its set of controversies. At the time she broke into the industry, the dominant trend was the waifish, heroin chic style. Pale skin, thin frames, and an almost fragile appearance. Gisele, on the other hand, had a glowing tan curves and a strong, healthy figure that stood in sharp contrast. For many, she was a breath of fresh air, a model who embodied vitality and athleticism. Yet not all designers were welcoming of this change. Some clung tightly to the older standard and felt her look clashed with the image they wanted to project. This created tension between Gisele and certain figures in fashion who resisted the new wave she represented. In the end, her success helped redefine beauty standards, but in the process, she faced her share of criticism and pushback. The media also enjoyed fueling the idea of rivalries between Gisele and other supermodels, most famously Heidi Klum. Both women were linked closely to Victoria's Secret, one of the most powerful brands in the modeling world at the time. Gisele became the face of the company's campaigns and runway shows, while Heidi was also a central figure, often hosting and promoting Victoria's Secret events. Comparisons between the two were constant, with the press framing it as a competition for dominance within the brand. Though there was no dramatic personal feud between them, the narrative of Gisele versus Heidi became a staple in magazines, giving the impression that they were locked in a battle for the crown of lingerie modeling. Beyond rivalries with other models, Gisele also faced criticism for her decisions. While many in the industry saw her as professional and committed, others quietly labeled her difficult. The reason was simple. She was not afraid to walk away from contracts that did not align with her values or her vision. At a time when most models would do anything to hold onto a major deal, Gisele's willingness to say no made her stand out. To some insiders, this confidence was seen as arrogance, but to others, it was a sign of strength. By standing firm, she protected her image and built a career on her terms. Though she's the envy of many today, Gisele once faced constant bullying and rejection. So what turned her story around? Fear, rejection, and the rise of a star. Gisele Bündchen's story did not start in the glamorous world of fashion shows or glossy magazines. It began in a small town in southern Brazil where she grew up in a strict Catholic household with her parents and 5 sisters. Life was simple, and family values were strong. The house was always filled with noise and laughter, but also with discipline and expectations. In that warm yet structured environment, Gisele learned the meaning of hard work and resilience from a very young age. Despite being surrounded by love at home, school was not always kind. Gisele stood out among her classmates for her unusual height and slender frame. Instead of admiration, she often faced cruel remarks and constant teasing. Her peers gave her the nickname Olive Oil, comparing her to the tall, thin cartoon character.
Can't imagine though, you were 14 and people are talking about your eyes are too close or your nose is too big.
I still have the same nose and the same eyes. I know that but I grew into it too.
For a young girl, those words were sharp and difficult to ignore. Still, rather than letting the ridicule break her spirit, Gisele used the pain to grow stronger, slowly building the confidence that would one day carry her far beyond her small hometown. Her first steps into the wider world were anything but easy. When she left Brazil to chase new opportunities abroad, she was met with challenges that tested every part of her courage. The biggest hurdle was language. Without the ability to speak English, she often felt isolated and misunderstood. Simple conversations became stressful, and navigating a new country seemed almost impossible. At fashion castings, she struggled to express herself, and instead of support, she was often mocked for her accent and limited vocabulary. The rejection was relentless. Dozens of agencies turned her away, insisting she did not have the right look or the right presence for the international stage.
They weren't hiring Gisele because they didn't even know me. They just liked the way I looked and they liked the way my body looked in clothes, I guess. I've done that. I understand that. And now
each no chipped away at her confidence, but she refused to let the setbacks end her journey. Every failure became fuel, and every closed door only made her more determined to prove herself. Then, in 1998, came the turning point that changed everything. Alexander McQueen, one of the most daring designers of the time, chose Gisele for his runway show. It was her big break, the moment that introduced her to the world of high fashion. On the outside, she looked like a confident new star taking her place under the spotlight. Yet behind the scenes, the truth was very different. Backstage, Gisele was gripped by fear. The pressure of performing on such a huge stage, powerful industry figures, was overwhelming. Panic attacks shadowed her every step, and she felt far from the glamorous figure the world saw. What made this moment so powerful was that she pushed through her fear. Even though her heart was racing and her nerves nearly broke her, she stepped onto that runway and delivered. That single show marked the beginning of her rise, but it also revealed the strength that would define her career. But with growing fame came even greater challenges.